Hello, everyone. It's hit the top of the hour, as I see. We're waiting for Karsten, I guess. And as soon as Karsten gets on, it looks like we have critical mass to go ahead. And I did just get slides from Karsten a few minutes ago, so I am expecting him. And here is Karsten. So we're ready to go. Welcome to the CBOR interim meeting. Karsten, I think it's over to you for the CDE portion.
Hello.
Hey, Martine. Karsten, are you there? Are you on audio? I think Karsten is not hearing us, or we are not hearing him, or both. Let me just check somebody else. Marco, Joe, are you guys hearing me?
Hi, Barry. Yes, I hear you.
Okay. So Mideko is telling me Karsten is here, but Karsten is not telling me that Karsten is here.
One, two, three, test.
Ah, Karsten is audible now. Karsten.
Good.
Okay, so we're ready for you to start with the CDE portion of the agenda.
So I have to share those slides. Okay. Actually, there's not really that much that I have here because we haven't really made any progress. So we are still looking at CDE-10, and we are mostly in this green lines where we have done the working group last call, but haven't actually received all comments. So we're waiting for comments. And what we said a few meetings ago is that we would have a time box for that. So I think that's all we need to discuss today, unless somebody wants to bring up something.
Well, hearing nothing. Oh, there's Lawrence. Lawrence. Lawrence, go ahead, unmute yourself and...
Yeah, what's your time box?
I don't know. I don't have anything that needs to be done here. So I'm just waiting for the working group to say at some point we are done with receiving comments, so we can go ahead.
Right. So
Right.
there are.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there are lots of there's a number of issues still open, right?
I am not aware of those. So
Sure.
maybe you could offline point me to them.
They're in GitHub and they're not closed.
Okay. So the
You
next
may
thing is
think they're closed, but I don't.
Yeah, I usually don't close issues of other people. So if you think these issues still mean anything at this point in time, please go ahead on those.
Yeah,
But
I'm
there's
working.
nothing actionable for me at the moment.
Wow, I'm working through them, a bit at a time as I can. I mean,
Yeah, when are we going to stop doing that?
I have a couple more to file, and I'll, as I've said in some emails, I'm going to keep working on them at the pace that I can work on them. I spend a couple hours a day on this usually. Lately, not so much, but if the chairs get to the point where they think that this is not going useful anymore, then they can call it.
Do you want to discuss any of your open issues at this point on this call?
I mean, we can.
And I guess if they have not already been discussed on the list, that's where we should start it. And this call should be for things that we need higher bandwidth to address. So I guess the thing is that if you're going through the document and opening issues, then what has to happen is we need to have discussion on those issues, not just have them opened in GitHub with no discussion.
Oh, I mean, there's commentary back and forth between on the mailing list and with Karsten with GitHub in GitHub. So there's discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite common in other working groups to open on the screen, on the shared screen, to open the issues page and walk through and say, this issue has a bunch of comments. We could use some discussion on it.
Okay. So let's set that for try to resolve what we can on the mailing list in between now and the next call. And the next call will go through, as Rowan just said, we'll go through the open issues and get them resolved and move this ahead.
Great.
Because we do need to put a box around this, not just spend an infinite amount of time letting it go.
Thank you.
All right, are we done with CDE then?
Yes.
For now. Okay, so now let's move on to PACT. Carsten, do you have anything to say about PACT before we turn it to Vadim?
Yeah, I think I have 3 or 4 slides here. Just find those. Yeah, so I don't need to repeat the history. I think everybody in the meeting knows that. And what we discussed recently was a proposal for radically reducing the consumption of resources, tags, and simple values. And I promised to write a document, and that is now available as PR number 24. Today I coined a new word for that because Rohan was unhappy for me to use the word radical for what PR24 is about. So PR24 is the radical solution, but it also keeps 3 specific efficiency improvements that come as tunables, because you can tune the number of simple values and the number of tags used for this A, B, and C. I'm not going to go into details what A, B, and C are, but I would like to remind people that we already looked at the differences we get from that. So at some point we need to make a determination whether we actually want to expend some resources to save about 2/3 of a byte in a reference. And yeah, of course, one default position is CBOR doesn't need to be efficient, so let's not do that. I have a slightly different position on this. I think this is a minimal amount of resources we can spend on this. And the numbers that I proposed, A equals 12, B equals 8, and C equals 8, are, I think, a very balanced way of, a very conservative way, actually, of using the resources. So we need to have that discussion. I'm not sure that people are actually prepared for this, have looked at the impacts. You actually have to run experiments. You cannot do this by looking at the document. You have to see what happens to your specific examples. And yeah, we need to agree something on this economic scale. And again, I think I have a pretty good conservative proposal. Merge the thing to another working class call and ship it. And I even have put dates on this slide when I think we can do that.
Rowan, go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, I posted on the list about like what's wrong with from in terms of what the document says. It's stated justification. It's it's stated requirements. It sounds like there is no there's no requirements reason why this couldn't be accomplished if A, B, and C are 0, which is the the truly radical reduction. That doesn't mean that I that doesn't mean that I couldn't accept having a handful of simple values or whatever. But in terms of the stated goals of the requirement, the radical requirement does appear to meet those. And so, Karsten has been using very subjective terms to describe why that's not okay, like reasonableness and, balance. And I think as a technical organization, I think we should come up with something a little bit more, more quantitative, or at least requirements based.
Yeah, so I don't think we want to have those experiments in the document, right? So this is a decision we can take outside the document and then just copy the numbers A, B, and C into the document. And I think it would be good if people actually looked at the applications they have for PACT and see what are the resource consumption values that would help that. And I think it's important to keep in mind that the audience for this document is people who are coming up with CBOR-based protocols and simply have to make a decision whether they do some bespoke stuff for their specific protocol, like for instance, Suit did, because we never got PACT ready in time for Suit, or whether they can use common infrastructure like the PACT protocol. And they will probably look at those numbers. So I think it's important that we keep in mind that the numbers need to be, reasonable for this actually to be a useful addition to the ecosystem.
Vadim, do you want to go first, or?
Well, I have slides with 2 ideas how to improve effectiveness of CBOR PACT.
Okay.
So maybe your questions first.
I'll just make my meta comment here, which is that I think that if we're going to have people say, like, here are my numbers, then we should have ahead of time, before You know, it would be nice if we could have a way that we know if we have met the requirements. So having people, I think having people provide some data about like, hey, this is my application and this seems like it worked for me. That's great, but it would be nice if ahead of time we can say, we think that we'll have success if XYZ condition happens, and not make again another subjective decision later.
Agree. Mm.
Yeah, I don't want to repeat the whole discussion from the mailing list about requirements versus objectives. Yeah, so that would be a good thing to have. And of course, we can spend infinite time for this. Martin already said that she can do something there. That's great, Martin, even if it will take another month before we get it. I really would like to hear from other people who are using PACT in various environments what their numbers are. Yeah, if we have to wait for the working group to wake up and look at these numbers, we certainly can do that. I would also like to make a quick comment on Vadim's proposal. This is a whole new work item. It doesn't have anything to do with what CBOR PACT does. So I'm not sure it actually is on the same track. We usually start discussing things when we have an internet draft to look at. And what we so far have is a number of emails and a number of slides that are not entirely comprehensible and certainly not detailed to the level of an internet draft. So I really have no idea what this has to do with the CBOR PACT project.
Well, I have 2 slides with fresh ideas specifically for CBOR PACT, not only my proposal. So
you have control.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to reply to Ron's question in the chat. So he asked if it's how sensitive my application is to an extra byte. Actually, very sensitive. So I try to basically reach the same compression rates DNS name compression gets, and there we have a reference that uses 2 bytes. So if I can the same amount of bytes or less than that for reference, that would be great.
Okay, so first 3 slides, as usual, the 2 formatting this my 10 slides from 6. Okay, first 3 slides are just a very quick overview of how my alternative may like. So you can see this unpacked CBOR, 48 bytes. Then how it would look under CBOR PACT. We count just RAM bytes here because dictionary and tables could be set up outside by, for example, media type. So this would look 30 bytes. Looking in example like this. Yeah. And in my proposal, by a different approach, it takes this that CBOR, original CBOR, in its encoded form and applies some escaping inside it is. So you can see the array start, copied originally from this string start of 10 bytes, but there are no 10 bytes, but less for this. So It's a different approach. It uses coded points outside of standard CBOR, but as you can see, it is easy to modify standard CBOR decoder to handle this, and this approach is already known, like tag 24 for encryption. I don't know how to copy this into chat. I'll show this. I'll show this on the screen. Yes, I can post the markdown later onto mail list. So returning CBOR pact and CBOR. That's all on my proposal. So on this slide, that's the questions that we just discussed here. That we don't have quantitative criteria. It's obvious that compression effectiveness is really a goal of CBOR Pact 2, but we don't know to what degree. And here, I think the problem is the consequence of a used method. CBOR Pact tries to do everything it does and be in a stock CBOR. That is using tags, strings, and no unused operation codes. That's why it is ineffective from the day zero. So wrapping it into byte string and using additional bytes can be more effective on compressions. For compression sensitive applications, as Martin said, it is very important for DNS. This may be very important. Here, how it is supposed to be implemented. I suggest that every packing or compression scheme is better built into the decoder itself rather than being done by applications. Using this, it is first, it's simple to implement, I think more easy to implement. And second, it allows to do, my next slide. Okay, if the decoding is done by a decoder library, then it can specifically handle CBOR Pact. For example, my post into my list about tag composability has been almost unanswered. For example, what if we can inner tag that can be any tag and not by its exact meaning. So here, for example, you can say 1 byte in your approach for a restart. Having an initialization of 2 tags where a second tag is just a number, not to be decoded by a real tag. This is first idea, how CBOR Pact can be improved. And second one, using reserved values. For example, currently some simple values are disallowed. So, for example, starting with this prefix decoder, which supports if it will be a standard stack as an extension to RFC 8949. It can handle, probably may handle packing also more effectively than our trading for number of tags. No, it's not about redefining all that CBOR. It's just an extension. So what's left? Final questions. Given that we have so many flame and mail lists about CDE, CBOR, and so on, what about thousands of flowers to bloom so that people can choose the standard that they want? What prohibits here? The tag overusage problem, where CBOR Pact takes too many tags, which is not opposed to any particular other standard, but to all others. This can be solved by a recent proposal, this pull request with specific numbers for A, B, and C. And what is left? Simple values. For example, if an application wants to use simple values, if CBOR Pact registers them, then no application in the world can use them. In contrast, my CBAP proposal uses simple values confined into just specific parts of it. As you can see on the slide, it can be combined even with CBOR Pact. For example, simple zero there and here have different meanings, but the opposite is not possible currently. And to know there that if CBOR Pact could somehow use simple values that in a way which does not prevent application to use them also, then CBOR Pact could increase the variable A to much more, also increasing its effectiveness. Thus, for example, there's a slight conflict with CBAP proposal on in about around simple zero. Final. My current opinion is about values which could be assigned to variables A, B, C are about square root of three ranges in corresponding ranges. And to think something about non-conflicting ranges. Possible idea may be to define, for example, simple values 0 to 15 in IANA in a way which mandates them to be confined in some tag, for example, so that they can have different meaning in different applications. In this way, CBOR Pact also could use more simple values than than current economic way is proposed. That's all questions.
Yeah, so I said this changes all of CBOR. No, it doesn't change all of CBOR, changes all the invariants that CBOR has. So for instance, by reinterpreting a tag number inside another tag, we are opening a can of worms. Of course, we can do that, but I think it's going to be a very different piece of work from CBOR Pact, where a tag 0 is a tag 0, and your decoder knows this is going to be an RFC 3239 date, so that there is no ambiguity about that. Having said that, there is some way in which CBOR Pact actually reinterprets certain items, the reference items. What the reference items mean depends on what is set up in the table around it. So any, for instance, simple values that we actually allocate for this will be available to any application that can be termed in, phrased in terms of setting up a CBOR Pact table. That's probably the wide majority of all applications. So yeah, again, it's really hard to actually look at this without a complete specification, and that's why we need something that resembles an internet draft for some great ideas, but not all of these ideas actually fit into CBOR very well. So using UTF-8 as a bytecode interpreter is certainly innovative, and one could do great things with that.
Bytecode is for in my proposal, in my CBOR and not for CBOR Pact. For CBOR Pact, this, for example, this slide. Do you think that this tag composition is problematic?
Yes. Because the tags that we already have allocated already have a meaning. So saying, for instance, tag 0 now means something different inside tag 6 is not something that I would expect the CBOR decoder to be able to handle.
Well, if it is a generic decoder which decodes to some class, then this would be no problem, because after transformation by CBOR Pact, there will be no these tags on item. Application will have just unpacked item representation.
Yeah, so you need a very different decoder in the first place. You cannot use a CBOR decoder with this. And that is why I said that it changes all of CBOR, because you no longer can use the existing components.
Well, we don't know this exactly, because as far as I can tell, nobody yet used more than one tag on item. While it's possible, it's terra incognita. Well, given questions on chat, it sounds reasonable that if a decoder don't understand this construction, then it doesn't understand CBOR pacts, and so that it should fail anyway. Can we suppose that it is true? I mean that this is should be not a problem for new for documents.
So is this a direction that we want to go? This is the primary question.
I don't know. This just fresh ideas. The first of it on this slide was posted to my list before, but not evaluated in details. And second, with reserved values in simple values, just a fresh idea for CBOR packs that I came to it yesterday.
Okay, Joe.
Yeah.
This-
So, sorry. Go ahead. Vadim?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I think we have decided from a requirements perspective that we are doing a compression format, is what I've heard. I guess that's a question. And let me just assume that the answer to that is yes. Then I suggest we might not have all of the right people in the room to do a compression format. If we're not doing a compression format, then I don't know what we're doing. And so this goes back to Rowan's requirements question.
Yes, I actually have a slide on that, but I don't want to switch slides now. So if you look at the abstract of the document, it tells you that this is not compression in the sense that we have been using this term since Huffman and Lempisev and so on. It's a way to exploit redundancy in a CBOR data item that has similar results to compression. It reduces the size, both of the serialized and hopefully of the in-core representation. But it doesn't require that you convert compressed data into uncompressed data before you actually can operate on those data. So it's very different from compression from that point of view. Yeah, it's not a codec because it doesn't take some data and gives you a different byte sequence. It's just a way to say so for instance, YAML has this kind of compression with anchors and how do they call the other things, the references? I forget it. And people often use that to reduce sharing in a data structure. And that's exactly one of the things that CBOR pact can do for you. But that doesn't mean that the data themselves had to be recoded into some format that needs to be completely decoded before you can do anything with it. No, Ron, that's actually not entirely true because there are ways to implement a pact that do not require you to unpack the pact CBOR.
Sorry, Karsten, I'm very puzzled. Maybe we're just talking about the difference between processing the entire document versus a streaming operation. Is that what you mean? Or do you mean that I can do ordinary processing on a packed CBOR document without unpacking that element?
if you have a shared item, that item is used in 2 different places in the tree. And those 2 places can share the same representation of the subtree, which is very different from a situation where you actually have to build 2 subtrees to look like ordinary CBOR.
I agree with the statement you just made, but I don't think that that means that you didn't perform an algorithm on the packed data. But neither here nor there.
Yeah, most people will read unpacked as build the original, and this is not what CBOR packed needs. It needs some accessors that actually are packed aware, but it doesn't require you to actually completely unpack the data structure before you can use it.
As far as I understand, CBOR packed is not for streaming applications, right?
It definitely wasn't the first thing in our minds when we discussed this, but I probably can even find a streaming application that can use CBOR packed.
Yes, the main point of CBOR packed is a potential ability to do to use the data without allocating additional buffer. My CBOR proposal also allows this. That is a decoder operating on these strings could look up item 0 or item 1 from the dictionary the same way as it can do this in CBOR packed. Just in CBOR packed, this is done via tags and simple values. But from the application layer, it's mostly the same if all this done in the decoder. Okay, we have something other to discuss today, or it's still packed?
Sorry. Yeah, so where are we on, what do we need to resolve on packed at this point to move forward? What is the first thing we need to sort out here? Question.
So on packed itself, we need to set A, B, and C. And I think we just said we want everyone to contribute their view on good values for A, B, and C.
Okay, so that's a mailing list thing.
Yes.
Is Vadim's proposal something we want to discuss more on the mailing list? Do we want to continue that discussion there? Is that, that's why I was saying, is this a direction that we want to move?
Please note that this is a different proposal from CBOR packs, and this could be two different standards. Probably they may even coexist. But introduction of my proposal probably can take the full interim, at least 30 minutes. So this needs to be had with more thorough presentation.
Right. So what I want to do with this then, if the working group wants to proceed with discussing this, I want to park it for right now until we get the 3 documents that we've been working on for a while sorted out. So we have to, we're taking CDE discussion back to the mailing list. We're taking the rest of this PACT discussion to the mailing list. And then we have the EDN literals discussion, which I don't want to do here because people have said they want time to digest yesterday's post. So that will be next time. We will look at CDE and EDN literals next time. So for this, Vadim, I want to park it. I want to put it aside until we resolve these other documents, and then we can come back to this. Does that make sense to everyone?
So we defer the PACT topic again. Yes?
Well, the PACT is, there's discussion that needs to happen on the mailing list now.
Oh, okay.
So I think that unless somebody wants to do further discussion now, I think we have gone through the portion of the agenda that we want to deal with right now. Is there something anybody wants to spend the next 10 minutes on? Or should we call this this session done a little bit early? Karsten.
Well, we had some pretty good discussion on the mailing list about EDN, so maybe we could use that. There is a fresh pull request out that I would ask people to actually look at and comment. But there are some more important fundamental questions that Roland has raised that maybe we can spend the last 30 minutes on.
Good, let's do it.
Karsten, did you want me to talk, or did you?
Well, I can also say what's in pull request 77 if you think that is useful, but I wanted to make sure that you get an opportunity to talk.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Basically, Karsten asked if we were talking about app sequences in general, and we were talking about things like having a hash, but like the reason that you would have a hash is so that you could put some data inside, put something that's presumably a B string inside of the hash, or something that you might encode in a B string, you would put in the hash, right? Because you wouldn't put the CBOR type and length at the beginning, maybe. And that maybe, the sort of logical next thing after that would be, well, what if we did a, AAD encryption or HPKE seal or some other kind of function, because it's really nice if you're debugging something and you want to see, oh yeah, there's a value here that is a signature, like, does it match? Fundamentally, I think that trying to stuff this into EDN is the wrong layer. I think that having CDDL know that some data item, whether it be a particular element in an array or a particular key in a map, and it knows that that is a hash or a signature or a ciphertext, I think that that's incredibly valuable. Because CDDL has much more semantics and much more context about an instance document than EDN does, I think that that is the right place to go and put functionality like that. And I also think that the success of the reason that people have used JSON and protobuf, which incidentally are not extensible or are barely extensible, has been because the kinds of things that we want to do have been done at the next level, at the next layer up. And because we've kept the sort of syntax layer very, very simple.
Yeah, so I found this email pretty interesting because that's a perspective that I actually haven't tried to populate yet. So the job of taking encoded CBOR data and finding structure in there, that is actually indeed the job of CDDL. And we can do some of this today. We would like to be able to do more. So just knowing that something is an integer doesn't necessarily give you all the information you need. So CDDL needs to grow some features for providing semantics with quotes on data that it actually accepts in the structure. But this is not really what the hash application extension in EDN does. Obviously, there's no point in an extension that tries to decode a hash and find out what data structure is in there. So yeah, you would need some help for doing that direction. But it makes a lot of sense to actually write an example for something that has a byte string, a 32-byte byte string or something like that, that actually is a hash value computed from something else. And it really helps when you write a specification, not having to write the result of that hash operation, but being able to write the input.
We do have a way of doing that, right? So we can have a preprocessor that does. So we've defined something like this in SDCOT, where we have a tag where we tag a thing that is to be we tag a value that is to be to become disclosable, to be redacted, and then then a preprocessor goes through and takes that tag and removes it, takes the data and turns it into a redacted disclosure, right? We have comments and we have ... So it would be perfectly reasonable to say, to have a place where you would have a hash in EDN, and if you're trying to put this in a specification where you're trying to explain how things work, to put, H single quote ... single quote, and then a comment that says this is the hash of the value up here, right? And you probably don't actually want to, maybe you don't want to actually include the value of the thing. You want to include it by referencing where it goes, and that this sort of adds more and more functionality if we want to be able to express that kind of referencing. We can also express, if you're doing this for production purposes, we can express this very easily in CDDL with a new CDDL control. And we can give both expressivity, and we can do it in a very correct, strict way, which EDN cannot do. So I think that we have a logical place to be able to do this for when we, for processing instance documents, both for taking, taking something that you put in a GitHub repo, for example, and turning it into a CBOR file where the hash is automatically calculated. We have a nice way to do that by using some tags and a preprocessor. We have a nice way to validate instance documents by adding CDL controls. We even have a nice way of annotating automatically, generating EDN with comments which which are informed by looking at the structure with CDDL. So I think we have all the things that we need without adding a new thing to EDN. And I think that if we add too much to EDN, I think that that is harmful to the adoption of the ecosystem, because it implies that something is complicated or not done in EDN, when in fact, I think a lot of people would just like to have something that is JSON that works with more, has more expressive types.
Yeah, so I'm not going to repeat the message I wrote to the mailing list. I co-wrote this paper in 1994 that discusses extension mechanisms and how these tend to become Turing equivalent at some point in time, and then what you have is another bad programming language. So that is certainly not the objective here. And of course, you can always write a Python script to actually generate the CBOR you want. It's just that you don't have a common language in which to talk to the people who are trying to understand your example. So actually, I think in the long run, we will have an interesting symmetry between the CDDL operators that do functions of this kind and the EDN mechanisms that allow you to actually express the result of such an operator in a single instance. That would be a logical thing to happen, but I didn't put in any energy in trying to reify the symmetry in the structure of EDN or CDDL yet. But I think it's important that we distinguish the processing of complex structures from, say, a Python script and building the structure and finally putting it out in CBOR from the kind of example you would want to write on a whiteboard or in a specification. And having something really simple like app extensions is a good way to do that.
But it's not simple. I think I showed how that is not simple. Specifying it well, correctly, getting all the corner cases right is not simple.
What? I don't know. It took me 20 minutes to implement it, so it's not.
That's the simplest example of the four that that had been bandied about, right? I wasn't the only person to bring up HPKACL.
I have to drop off to go to another call. I'll let Karsten wrap up the session, or Ori if he prefers. So, but I have to go to another call. Continue.
If Ori can do that, I would be glad.
I'm curious if anybody else has an opinion here. Like, I guess one of the opinions would be, would what I described work instead of putting stuff in EDN to use these other mechanisms that we already have?
Well, schema description and EDN are two different things.
Indeed.
For example, JSON itself and JSON schema are different. So why discuss that extension should not be?
Why wouldn't you use CDDL to describe the semantics of your encryption, ciphertext, or hash, or what have you?
Why not? This doesn't contradict the EDN.
Yeah, I think it's pretty useful to keep a level of isolation between CDDL and EDN at this point in time, before we fully have understood the symmetries that we are trying to achieve. So I'm not sure I would want to see snippets of CDDL in EDN. I might write a program.
No, I'm not at all suggesting we put any CDDL anywhere in EDN. I'm
Good,
saying
good.
define your EDN and have your tool process the EDN and the CDDL, or the CBOR and the CDDL. If
Yeah,
you take
and you
EDN
can
and
use-
CDDL, it generates, it generates CBOR. If you have CBOR and CDDL, it generates EDN.
This would be
So
excellent.
you can use app sequences to actually indicate to your tool where the places are that it needs to work. That's exactly what it is designed for. Okay, I think we need to wrap up because we are on the top of the hour. When we lost your video, are you gone? Or?
This tool would be good, but this is not a stopper for EDN RFC.
Any other comments on this? So in that case, I think we had an interesting start of a discussion, and I'm sure we can take this to the mailing list and explore this a little bit more, maybe even with a few hand-constructed examples of what we mean when we use these terms. And yeah, maybe we can make some progress, but please don't forget to actually also look at pull request 77 and see whether that is actually addressing the remaining issues, except the one on whether we should have extensibility at all.
I think app sequences are the right direction. So just merge this pull request and go on.
Thank you. So if people can write something to the mailing list, that would be really useful. With that, I think we need to close the meeting. Again, is anybody else having a comment? Final comment? That's not the case. So I wish you all a great Labor Day, which it is in Europe tomorrow. I have no idea whether that extends to the US. And see you in 2 weeks.